I never thought I'd be the guy posting on a throwaway account because my life turned into a bad Lifetime movie. But here I am. My hands are actually shaking as I type this, and I've been sitting in my car in a grocery store parking lot for 3 hours because I don't even want to go home. To understand the mess I'm in, you need to know about my family dynamic. I'm Mark, M32. My younger brother is Caleb, M28. In our house, Caleb was the golden child. I'm not just saying that. It was a fact. If Caleb broke a window, I must have been the one who distracted him. If Caleb failed a class, the teacher was biased. If I worked 40 hours a week during college to pay my tuition while Caleb spent his allowance on crypto investments that vanished into thin air, I was told I was lucky to have a work ethic, while Caleb was still finding his soul. My dad, David, was the only one who saw through it. He was a self-made man who built Evergreen Restoration, a high-end construction and historical preservation firm. He was my hero. He was the only person who ever truly had my back. He taught me the business from the ground up, literally. I spent my summers hauling drywall and learning how to mill crown molding while Caleb was at leadership camps that he usually got kicked out of for behavioral mismatches. 6 months ago, Dad passed away suddenly from a massive heart attack. It destroyed me. At the funeral, while I was a shell of a human being, Caleb was already asking where Dad kept the keys to the classic 1967 Mustang in the garage. My mother, Linda, F61, didn't even tell him to shut up. She just patted his hand and said, "We'll take care of everything, honey. Don't worry about the money." That should have been my first red flag. The second was my fiancé, Sarah, F29. We've been together for 4 years. She was supposed to be my rock, but lately she's been different. Whenever I complained about Caleb's laziness at the firm, because of course, Mom forced me to hire him as a project consultant, a job where he mostly scrolls TikTok in an air-conditioned trailer, Sarah would defend him. She'd say things like, "Mark, you're too hard on him. He's grieving differently. He needs grace, not a lecture." Grace. Caleb doesn't need grace. He needs a reality check. The real explosion happened 3 days ago at the formal reading of the will. We all sat in this cold, sterile lawyer's office. Caleb was wearing a suit that I'm 90% sure he bought with the company credit card I told him not to touch. My mother sat there with this practiced, stoic look on her face. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson, cleared his throat and started reading. Dad didn't leave things equal, not by a long shot. Because I had been the one running the company for the last 5 years while Dad's health declined, he left me 70% ownership of Evergreen Restoration. He left the family estate, the 5-bedroom house and the 10 acres of land, to me directly, with the stipulation that my mother has a life estate there, meaning she can live there until she passes, but she can't sell it or borrow against it. Caleb? Caleb got a 10% stake in the company, held in a restricted trust that he can't touch for 5 years, and a cash payout of $50,000. The remaining 20% went to a scholarship fund for trade schools. The silence in that room was so thick you could have cut it with a dull saw. Then, Caleb exploded. "This is bullshit! Mark, what did you do? Did you poison him? Did you talk him into this while he was on meds?" I just sat there, numb. "Caleb, I didn't even know what was in the will. Dad and I talked about the business, but we never talked about the house." My mother didn't scream. She did something worse. She looked at me with this cold, disgusted sneer and whispered, "You always were a greedy little thief, weren't you? You worked your way into his head because you knew Caleb was the one he actually loved. You're going to fix this, Mark. You're going to sign over half the shares and the house deed to your brother, or you are no longer a part of this family." I looked at Sarah, expecting her to be horrified. Instead, she stayed silent. She wouldn't even look at me. When we got home, the gaslighting went into overdrive. My mom and Caleb have been tag-teaming me for 72 hours. They called every aunt, uncle, and cousin we have. I've received 50 texts calling me a narcissist, a traitor, and a snake. But here is where the betrayal gets deeper. Yesterday, I came home early because I had a migraine from the stress. The house was quiet. I walked toward the kitchen and heard voices coming from the sunroom. It was Sarah and Caleb. I stopped. I know. I should have walked in, but I listened. Caleb was saying, "Once he signs the papers, we won't have to hide anymore. My mom already said she'd give us the east wing of the house. We can finally get rid of his stiff energy." Then I heard Sarah, my Sarah, The woman I was going to marry in 4 months. I know, babe. It's just taking longer than I thought. He's being so stubborn about the legacy of the business. Just keep playing the victim, and I'll keep whispering in his ear that he's being too aggressive. He'll break. He always does when he thinks he's hurting people. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. I didn't confront them. I'm ashamed to say I just backed away. I went to the garage, got in my car, and drove. I've spent the last few hours realizing my entire life is a lie. My brother is sleeping with my fiancé. My mother is trying to ruin me financially to fund her favorite son's lifestyle. And they think I'm breaking. They think I'm the same reliable Mark who just takes the hits and keeps working. They think I'm going to hand over the keys to the company my father and I bled for just to keep a peace that never existed. They have no idea what's coming. I've already called Mr. Henderson. I've also called a private investigator. And most importantly, I'm the only one who has the admin passwords to the company's financial servers and the keys to the off-site storage where Dad kept the real ledgers, the ones that show Caleb has been skimming off the top of the restoration projects for the last 6 months. I'm not breaking, I'm hardening. I'm going back to the house now. I'm going to act like the broken man they want to see for just a little while longer while I move every cent of my personal money into a private account and document every single word they say. I'll update when I have more. God, I feel sick. Time passed since last post, 48 hours. I'm back. I'm currently sitting in a cheap motel room on the outskirts of town because I couldn't spend another second under the same roof as those people. My skin feels like it's crawling. I took your advice. I didn't blow up. I didn't scream. When I walked back into that house 2 nights ago, I played the part of the broken man to perfection. I walked in with my shoulders slumped, my eyes red, which wasn't hard considering I'd been crying in my car, and I didn't say a word. Sarah was in the kitchen pouring a glass of wine. She looked at me with this faked pity that makes me want to vomit now that I know the truth. Mark, honey, where have you been? We were so worried. Your mom has been a wreck. A wreck. Right. I just looked at her and whispered, I just needed to drive, Sarah. I feel like my world is ending. My own mother thinks I'm a thief. She actually came over and hugged me, feeling her arms around me, knowing she had probably just been touching Caleb hours before. It was the hardest thing I've ever done not to recoil. She rubbed my back and said, she's just hurting, Mark. We all are. Maybe if you just showed Caleb you trust him, maybe if you gave him a real stake in the company, it would heal the family. Heal the family. She meant fund our affair. I told her I needed to sleep, but I didn't sleep. I waited until 2 a.m. when the house was silent. I crept down to my home office and grabbed the external hard drive where I keep the mirrored backups of the Evergreen Restoration financial server. I spent 6 hours, until the sun started coming up, going through the miscellaneous materials and subcontractor payouts from the last 4 months. Caleb is a moron. He thought he was being clever, but he's lazy. He's been creating invoices for a shell company called C&L Consulting. C&L. Caleb and Linda. My mother is in on it. He's funneled nearly $42,000 out of the company since Dad's first heart attack in November. He was stealing from Dad while Dad was literally on his deathbed. I found the digital trail. It's all there. He's been using the company's historical timber budget to pay for what looks like consulting fees. But the wire transfers go straight to a private account Caleb opened 3 months ago. But that wasn't the worst part. Yesterday morning, I told them I was going into the office to start the paperwork for the transition. You should have seen their faces. My mother actually made me breakfast. She hasn't cooked for me in 3 years. She put a plate of eggs in front of me and smiled. I knew you'd do the right thing, Mark. You were always the responsible one. You know Caleb needs more help than you do. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, I just want us to be a family again, Mom. The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. I left the house, but I didn't go to the office. I went to see Mr. Henderson, the lawyer. I showed him the C&L Consulting invoices. Henderson looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. He told me that since I own 70% of the firm, I have the unilateral power to terminate Caleb's employment for cause immediately, meaning he loses his 10% stake based on a morality and bad actor clause Dad had the foresight to put in the operating agreement. Dad knew. He must have known Caleb would try something. He left me the tools to bury him, and I didn't even realize it until now. While I was with Henderson, my phone buzzed. It was the private investigator I hired. He'd been sitting outside the house since 9 a.m. He sent me 3 photos. The first was Caleb's car parked at a no-tell motel 20 minutes from the house at 10:30 a.m. The second was Sarah's car pulling in next to it 5 minutes later. The third was the two of them walking into room 114. Caleb had his arm around her waist, and she was laughing. She was wearing the sweater I bought her for Christmas. I nearly passed out in Henderson's office. I had to put my head between my knees to keep from puking. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I need the climax to be public. I need everyone who called me a snake and a narcissist to see exactly who the real villains are. Here is the plan. Tomorrow is the Legacy dinner. It's a big charity gala Dad used to host every year for the local historical society. All our clients will be there. All our extended family. The who's who of the industry. My mother thinks this is going to be the night I announce that I'm partnering with Caleb and bringing him on as co-CEO. She's been bragging about it on Facebook all day. She even told me to bring the transfer papers so we can sign them symbolically in front of our closest friends. Oh, I'm bringing papers all right. I've spent today moving my personal belongings into this motel. I've emptied the joint savings account I shared with Sarah. Legally, it's 50% mine, but since 100% of the deposits came from my salary, I took it all and put it into a new account she can't touch. I've already contacted the landlord of the apartment we were supposed to move into next month and canceled the lease. Tonight, I'm going to sit in this room and look at those photos of them in room 114. I'm going to read those fraudulent invoices over and over until my heart turns to stone. Sarah just texted me. Hey baby, I'm so proud of you for doing the right thing for the family. I love you so much. See you at dinner tomorrow? I bought a new dress. XOXO. I didn't reply. The new dress was probably paid for with the money Caleb stole from my dead father. Tomorrow night, the golden child loses his shine. Tomorrow night, the loving fiancé becomes a stranger. And tomorrow night, my mother finds out exactly what happens when you push the reliable son too far. I'm going to record everything. I hope you guys are ready for the update after the gala, because it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. Wish me luck. I'm going to try to get some sleep, but I can still hear Sarah's laugh from that PI's description in my head. Time passed since last update. 3 weeks. I'm sorry I've been gone for so long. Things went nuclear. I had to wait for the dust to settle and for my lawyer to give me the green light to post again. I'm currently sitting in my father's old office, my office now, and the silence is finally peaceful. But getting here, it was a war. Let's talk about the Legacy Gala. I showed up late, on purpose. I wanted the room to be full. I wanted every major donor, every city council member, and every single one of my loving extended family members to be seated and sipping their champagne before I walked in. I wore the suit my father bought me when I was promoted to vice president. Sarah was already there, looking angelic in a white silk dress that cost more than my first truck. She ran up to me the second I entered the foyer. "Mark, where have you been? Your mom is pacing. We have the presentation ready to go in 10 minutes. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel pain. I felt nothing. Just cold, hard clarity. I'm here, Sarah. Don't worry. This is going to be a night no one forgets. She smiled, oblivious, and kissed my cheek. It took everything in me not to wipe my face. The gala was held in the ballroom of the Grand Heritage Hotel. My mother, Linda, was on the stage, looking like the Queen Mother of historical restoration. She had a microphone in her hand. "Thank you all for coming," she beamed. "Tonight is about legacy. It's about passing the torch to the next generation. My son Mark has a very special announcement regarding the future of evergreen restoration and our family's commitment to this community." She beckoned me up. Caleb was standing right next to her, looking smugger than I've ever seen him. He actually winked at me. He thought he'd won. He thought he was about to get 40% of a multi-million-dollar company and a seat on the throne he never earned. I walked up to the podium. The Legacy presentation was loaded on the massive projector screens behind me. It was supposed to be a slideshow of my dad's greatest projects, ending with a slide that said, "A new partnership, Mark and Caleb." I pulled the remote from my pocket. "Thank you, Mom," I said into the mic. My voice was steady, too steady. Dad always said that a building is only as strong as its foundation. If the foundation is rotted, or if there are termites eating away at the beams from the inside, the whole thing has to come down. I saw Caleb's smile falter. My mother's brow furrowed. I have some updates to the company's internal structure, I continued. But before we talk about the future, we have to address the rot. I clicked the remote. The screen didn't show a picture of a restored Victorian mansion. It showed a high-resolution photo of room 114 at the Willow Creek Motel. It showed Caleb and Sarah, arm in arm, entering the room. The gasp that went through that room was like a physical wave. It was the sound of 300 people losing their breath at once. "Mark? What is this?" Sarah screamed from the front row. Her face turned the color of chalk. I didn't answer her. I clicked again. The screen shifted to a spreadsheet. It was the C&L consulting ledger. "This," I said, my voice booming through the speakers, "is evidence of $42,000 being embezzled from my father's estate while he was in the ICU. The C stands for Caleb. The L stands for Linda." My mother grabbed the microphone from the stand. "Turn it off. Mark, stop this madness. You're humiliated. You're lying." "I'm not lying, Mom," I said, turning to face her. The room was dead silent now, except for the hum of the projector. The bank records don't lie. The private investigator's photos don't lie. And Dad didn't lie when he left me the power to protect his life's work from people like you. Caleb lunged at me. He actually tried to tackle me on stage in front of everyone, but I'd expected that. I'd hired 2 security guards for the event, who were actually off-duty police officers I'd briefed beforehand. They intercepted him before he even got close. "Get off me! He's a snake! He's ruining everything!" Caleb was screaming, his face purple with rage. "Caleb Miller," one of the officers said, loud enough for the first 5 rows to hear. "You are being detained pending an investigation into felony embezzlement and corporate fraud." The climax didn't stop there. I looked down at Sarah. She was crying now. Big, fat, performative tears. "Mark, please! It was a mistake! He manipulated me! I love you!" "The lease on the new apartment is canceled, Sarah," I said into the mic. "Your bags are currently sitting on the sidewalk in front of my house. Your key doesn't work. We're done." My mother was shaking. She looked at the crowd, people she had known for 30 years, and saw only disgust. She tried to play the victim one last time. "You can't do this to me, Mark. I'm your mother. I have a life estate in that house." "You do," I replied, "and you can stay there. But as of tomorrow morning, I am filing a petition to have you removed as a trustee of the family fund for breach of fiduciary duty. You'll have the house, Mom, but you'll be living there on the bare minimum. No more gala dresses. No more funding Caleb's investments. You wanted to choose the golden child? Well, now you can live with him, because I'm sure he'll be looking for a place to stay once he gets out of lockup." The officers led Caleb out in handcuffs through the center aisle. The silence followed them all the way out the doors. I didn't stay for the rest of the dinner. I walked off that stage, through the foyer, and into the cool night air. The last 3 weeks have been a blur of legal filings and police statements. Caleb is facing formal charges. Sarah has been blowing up my phone with apology videos and threats of self-harm, which I immediately forwarded to her parents in the local precinct for a wellness check. I've blocked her on everything. My mother is currently refusing to leave her bedroom in the estate. Fine. She can stay in that big, empty house and think about what $42,000 cost her. I'm exhausted. My family is gone. My fiancé is a stranger. But for the first time in my life, I don't feel like the runner-up. I'm taking a week off. I'm going to go to the cabin Dad built in the woods, the one he didn't tell anyone about except me. I need to breathe. I'll update one last time in a few months to let you know where the legal cases land. Thanks for being there when I was sitting in that grocery store parking lot. You guys were the only ones I could talk to. Goodbye for now. Time passed since last update. 1 year. It's been exactly 1 year since that night at the gala. I'm sitting on the back porch of the family estate. The sun is setting over the acreage Dad loved so much, and for the first time in my life, it finally feels like home. Not a battlefield, just home. I wanted to wait until the legal ink was dry before giving you guys the final chapter. A lot of you asked if I went too far. After what I'm about to tell you, I think you'll agree I didn't go far enough. Let's start with Caleb. The golden child didn't handle the orange jumpsuit very well. Because the evidence of embezzlement was so clear-cut, literally digital footprints leading right to his front door. His lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity due to grief. It didn't fly. The judge looked at the records of him buying a $12,000 watch 3 weeks after Dad died and basically laughed the defense out of the room. Caleb ended up taking a plea deal to avoid the maximum sentence. He served 6 months in county and is now on 5 years of strict probation. But here's the kicker. Part of his sentencing involved full restitution. Since he had already spent the $42,000 on designer clothes, hotel rooms for Sarah, and investments, the court ordered a lien on his 10% stake in Evergreen Restoration. I didn't even have to fight to buy him out. The court essentially forced the sale of his shares to me at a fraction of their value to pay back the estate. Caleb is now officially, legally, and permanently scrubbed from the company. Last I heard, he's working at a car wash 3 towns over because no construction firm in the state will touch him after the Gala video went viral in our industry circles. And then there's Sarah. 6 months ago, I was at a coffee shop near the office when I saw her. She didn't see me. She looked different. No more silk dresses. She was wearing a stained hoodie and looked like she hadn't slept in a week. From what I've gathered through mutual friends, the ones who stayed loyal to me anyway, she and Caleb tried to make it work after the scandal. I guess when you build a relationship on a foundation of betrayal and stolen money, it doesn't hold up well under the pressure of actual poverty. They fought constantly. Apparently, Caleb blamed her for distracting him from the business, and she blamed him for ruining her reputation. They broke up 3 days after his sentencing. She tried to move back in with her parents, but her dad, a man of old-school integrity who had actually been friends with my father, told her she could sleep on the couch for 2 weeks and then she had to find a job and a place of her own. She sent me a final email last month. It was 6 pages long. She didn't apologize. Not really. She spent 5 pages explaining how isolated I had made her feel with my workaholism and how Caleb was the only one who saw her. Then, in the last paragraph, she asked if I'd be willing to loan her $5,000 for a security deposit on a new apartment because she was in a dark place. I didn't reply. I just hit report as spam and felt the last tether to her snap. Then there's my mother, Linda. This is the hardest part to talk about. She's still in the house. Because of the life estate, I can't legally kick her out, but the house is divided now. I moved back in 4 months ago to ensure the property was being maintained, but I had a contractor friend come in and literally wall off the east wing. She has her own entrance, her own small kitchen, and her own living space. We live under the same roof, but we are strangers. We haven't spoken a word to each other in 90 days. Sometimes, I hear her crying through the walls. Sometimes, I see her looking out the window at the driveway, probably waiting for Caleb to pull up in a car he no longer owns. I still pay for the utilities and the property taxes, because that's what the will demands. But the country club life is over. She's on a fixed budget from her Social Security. No more C&L consulting bonuses. Last week, I saw her in the hallway. She looked at me, her eyes red, and whispered, "Are you happy now, Mark? You've destroyed this family. You're just like your father. Cold. Hard." I stopped and looked at her. I didn't feel angry. I just felt tired. I said, "Mom, Dad wasn't cold. He just knew the difference between a person who builds and a person who burns. You chose the person who burns. I'm just the one left picking up the ashes." She didn't have a response to that. She just turned around and went back into her wing. As for me, Evergreen Restoration is thriving. Without the dead weight of Caleb and the constant stress of my mother's manipulation, I've doubled our revenue. I've hired 3 new project managers, real ones, with degrees and work ethics. I also started that scholarship fund my dad wanted. We've already sent 4 kids to trade school this year. Every time I sign one of those checks, I feel like Dad is standing right behind me, hand on my shoulder, giving me that little nod he used to give when I finally got a miter joint perfect. I'm dating again too, slowly, very slowly. Her name is Claire. She's an architect. She's smart, she's independent, and most importantly, she thinks golden child syndrome is a disgusting excuse for bad parenting. We're taking it one day at a time. I'm standing on this porch now, looking at the land. The reliable son didn't break. He just grew a spine. To anyone out there dealing with a Caleb or a Linda, don't give them your peace. Don't sign the papers. Don't keep the peace for the sake of a family that would gladly sell you for parts. Build your own kingdom, lock the gates, and keep the keys. Thanks for listening to my saga. I think I'm going to go inside now. Claire is coming over for dinner, and I have a bottle of wine that I bought with my own hard-earned money. Signing off for the last time. Be good to yourselves.